Muhammad Ali Jinnah was a British politician and the founder of Pakistan. Jinnah served as the leader of All India Muslim League from 1930 until the inception of Pakistan on 14 August 1947, and then as the Dominion of Pakistan's first Governor-General until his death. He was born at Wazir Mansion in Karachi. Jinnah was trained as a barrister at Lincoln's Inn in London, England. Upon his return to India, he enrolled at Bombay High Court and took an interest in national politics, which eventually replaced his legal practice. Jinnah rose to prominence in the Indian National Congress in the first two decades of the 20th century. In these early years of his political career, Jinnah advocated Hindu-Muslim unity, helping to shape the 1916 Lucknow Pact between the Congress and the All India Muslim League, in which Jinnah had also become prominent. Jinnah became a key leader in the All India Home Rule League and proposed a 14-point constitution reform plan to safeguard the political rights of Muslims in the subcontinent. In 1924, Jinnah resigned from the Congress when it agreed to follow a campaign of Satyagraha, which he regarded as a political anarchy. By 1940, Jinnah had come to believe that the Muslims of the subcontinent should have their own state to avoid the possible marginalized status they may gain in an independent Hindu-Muslim state. In that year, the Muslim League, led by Jinnah, passed the Lahore Resolution demanding a separate nation for Indian Muslims. During the Second World War, the League gained strength while leaders of the Congress were imprisoned, and the provincial election held shortly after the war. It won most of the seats just for Muslims. Ultimately, the Congress and the Muslim League could not reach a power-sharing formula that would allow the entirety of British India to be united as a single state following independence, leading all parties to agree instead to the independence of a predominantly Hindu India of a Muslim majority state of Pakistan. As the first Governor-General of Pakistan, Jinnah worked to establish the new nation's government and policies and to aid the millions of Muslim migrants who had immigrated from neighboring India to Pakistan after the two states' independence, personally supervising the establishment of refugee camps. The Red Khalifa Commission divided Bengal and Punjab completed its work and reported to Mountbatten on 12 August. The last viceroy held maps until the 17th, not wanting to spoil the independent separation in both nations. There had already been ethnically charged violence in a movement of population. Publication on the Red Khalifa line dividing the new nation sparked mass migration, murder, and ethnic cleansing. Many on the wrong side of the line fled or were murdered and murdered others, hoping to make facts on the ground which would reverse the Commission's verdict. Radigan wrote in his report that he knew that the neither side would be happy with his reward. He declined his fee for the work. Christopher Mount, Radical's private secretary, later wrote that Mountbatten must take the blame, though not the sole blame, for the massacre in the Punjab in which between 5,000 to 1 million men, women and children perished. As many as 14.5 million people relocated between India and Pakistan during and after partition. Jinnah did what he could for the 8 million people who migrated to Pakistan, although by no hours empty and frail from lung ailments. He travelled across West Pakistan and personally supervised the provision of aid. According to Ahmed, what Pakistan needed desperately in those early months was a symbol of the state, one that would unify people and give them the courage and resolve to succeed. Among the resting regions of the new nation was the Northwest Frontier Province. The referendum there in July 1947 had been tainted by low turnout as less than 10% of the population were allowed to vote. On 23 August 1947, just after a week of becoming Governor-General, Jinnah dissolved the elected government of Dr. Khan Abdul Jabbar Khan. Later on, Abdul Qayyum Khan was put in place by Jinnah in Pashtun government represents despite him being a Kashmiri. On 12 August 1948, the Babra massacre in Charsadda occurred, resulting in the death of 400 people aligned with the Khudai Khidmatkar movement. Along with Liaquat Ali Khan and Abdur Rab Nishtar, Jinnah represent Pakistan interests in the Division Council to appropriate divide public assets between India and Pakistan. Pakistan was supposed to receive one-sixth of the pre-independence government's assets carefully divided by agreement, even specifying how many sheets of paper each side would receive. Many Indian states, however, were slow to deliver, hoping for the collapse of the nascent Pakistani government and reunion. Few members of the Indian Civil Service and the Indian Police Service had chosen Pakistan, resulting in staff and shortage. Partition meant that for some farmers, the markets to sell their crops were on the other side of an international border. There were shortages of machinery, not all of which made in Pakistan. In addition to the massive refuge problem, the new government sought to save abundant crops, establish security in a chaotic situation, and provide basic services. According to economist Yamin Niaz Mohyuddin in her study of Pakistan, although Pakistan was born in bloodshed and turmoil, it survived in the nation and difficult months after partition only because of the tremendous sacrifices made by its people and the selfless efforts of its great leader. The princely states of India were advised by the departing British to choose whether to join Pakistan or India. Most did so prior to independence, but the holdouts contributed to what have become lasting divisions between the two nations. Indian leaders were angered at Jinnah's attempt to convince the Prince of Jodhpur, Udaipur, Bhopal and Indore to accede to Pakistan. The latter three princely states did not border with Pakistan. Jodhpur bordered it and had both a Hindu majority population and Hindu ruler. The coastal princely state of Junagadh, which had a majority Hindu population, did accede to Pakistan in September 1947, with its rulers Diwan Sir Shah Nawaz Bhutto personally delivering the accession papers to Jinnah. For the two states were subject to suzerainty of Junagadh, Mangrol and Babariyabad, declared their independence from Junagadh and acceded to India. In response, the Nawab of Junagadh military occupied the two states. Subsequently, the Indian army occupied the principality in November, forcing its former leaders, including Bhutto, to flee to Pakistan, beginning the politically influential Bhutto family. The most contentious of the disputes was and continues to be that over the princely state of Kashmir. It had a Muslim majority population and a Hindu Maharaja Sir Hari Singh forestalled his decision on what should to do. With the population revolt in October 1947, aided by Pakistani irregularities, the Maharaja acceded to India. Indian troops were airlifted in Jinnah, objected to this action and ordered to attack in this area. The Pakistani army was still commanded by British officers. The commanding officer, General Sir Douglas Gracie, refused the order, stating that he would not move into what he considered the territory of another nation without approval from higher authority, which was not forthcoming. Jinnah withdrew the order. This did not stop the violence there, which broke out into Pakistan-India War of 1947. Some historians allege that Jinnah's courting the rulers of Hindu-majority states and his gambit with Junagadh are evidence of ill intent towards India, as Jinnah had promoted separation by religion, yet tried to gain the accession of Hindu-majority states. In his book Patel A Life, Ram Mohan Gandhi asserts that Jinnah hoped for a plebiscite in Junagadh, knowing Pakistan would lose, in the hope the principle would be established for Kashmir. However, when Mountbatten proposed to Jinnah that in all the princely states where the ruler did not accede to a dominion corresponding to majority population, which would have included Junagadh, Hyderabad and Kashmir, The accession should be decided by an impartial reference to the will of the people. Jinnah rejected the offer despite the United Nations Security Council Resolution 47. Issued at India's request for a plebiscite in Kashmir after the withdrawal of Pakistani forces. This has never occurred. In 1948, the Indian government finally agreed to pay Pakistan its share of British Indian assets. They were impelled by Gandhi, who threatened a fast until death. Only days later, on 13 January, Gandhi was assassinated by another Godse, a Hindu nationalist. Who believed that Gandhi was pro-Muslim. After hearing about Gandhi's murder on the following day, Jinnah publicly made a brief statement of condolence, calling Gandhi one of the greatest men produced by Hindu community. In February 1948, in a radio talk broadcast addressed to the people of US, Jinnah expressed his views regarding Pakistan's constitution in the following way. The Constitution of Pakistan is yet to be framed by the Pakistan Constitutional Assembly. I do not know what the ultimate shape of the Constitution is going to be, but I am sure that it will be of democratic type, embodying the essential principle of Islam. Today these are applicable in actual life as these were 1300 years ago. Islam and its idealism had taught us democracy. It had taught equality of man, justice and fair play to everybody. We are the inheritors of these glorious traditions and are fully alive to our responsibilities and obligations as framers of the future Constitution of Pakistan. In March, Jinnah, despite his declining health, made his only post-independence visit to East Pakistan. In a speech before a crowd estimated at 3,000 people, Jinnah stated that Urdu alone should be the national language, believing a single language was needed for a nation to remain united. The Bengali-speaking people of East Pakistan strongly opposed this policy, and in 1971 the official language issue was affected in the region's succession to form the country of Bangladesh. From 1930s, Jinnah suffered from tuberculosis. Only his sister and a few others close to him were aware of his condition. Jinnah believed public knowledge of his lung ailments would hurt him politically. In a 1938 letter, he wrote to a supporter that you must have read in the papers how during my tours I suffered, which was not because there was anything wrong with me, but the irregularities and overstrain told upon my health. Many years later, Mountbatten stated that if he had known Jinnah was so physically ill, he would have stalled, hoping Jinnah's death would avert partition. Fatima Jinnah later wrote, even in his hour of triumph, the Qaeda was gravely ill. He worked in a frenzy to consolidate Pakistan and of course he totally neglected his health. Jinnah worked with a tin of crayon, a cigarette at his desk, of which he had smoked 50 or more a day for the previous 30 years, as well as a box of Cuban cigars. As his health got worse, he took longer and longer rest breaks in the private wing of Government House in Karachi, where only he, Fatima Jinnah and servants were allowed. In June 1948, he and Fatima flee to Quetta in the mountains of Balochistan, where the weather was cooler than in Karachi. He could not complete rest there, addressing the officers at the Command and Staff College, saying, "You, along with the other forces of Pakistan, are the custodians of life, property and honor of the people of Pakistan." He turned to Karachi for the 1 July opening ceremony of the State Bank of Pakistan, at which he spoke. A reception by the Canadian Trade Commissioner that evening in honor of Dominion Day was the last public event he attended. On 6 July 1948, Jinnah returned to Quetta, but at the advice of doctors, soon journeyed to an higher retreat at Ziyarat. Jinnah had always been reluctant to undergo medical treatment, but realizing his condition was getting worse, the Pakistan government sent the best doctors it could find to treat him. Tests confirmed tuberculosis and also showed evidence of advanced lung cancer. He was treated with the new miracle drug offered, streptomycin. but it don't help. Jinnah's condition continued to deteriorate despite the praise of his people. He was moved to the low latitude of Quetta on 13 August, the year of independence, for which a ghost return statement for him was released. Despite an increase in appetite, it was clear to his doctors that if he was to return to Karachi in life, he would have to do so very soon. Jinnah, however, was reluctant to go, not wishing his aides to see him as an invalid on a stretcher. By 9 September, Jinnah had also developed pneumonia. Doctor urged him to return to Karachi, where he could receive better care, and with his agreement, he was flown there on the morning of 11 September. Dr. Elahi Baksh, his personal physician, believed that Jinnah's change of mind was caused by folk knowledge of death. The plane landed at Karachi that afternoon to be met by Jinnah's limousine and an ambulance into which Jinnah's stretcher was placed. The ambulance broke down on the road into town. The Governor-General and those with him waited for another to arrive. He could not be placed in the cars as he could not sit up. They awaited by the roadside in oppressive heat as trucks and buses passed by unsuitable for transporting dying men and with their occupants not knowing of Jinnah's presence. After an hour, the replacement of ambulance came and transported Jinnah to Government House, arriving there over 2 hours after the landing. Jinnah died later that night at 10:20 p.m. at his home in Karachi on 11 September 1948 at the age of 71, just over a year after Pakistan's creation. Indian Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru stated upon his death, "How shall we judge him? I have very angry with him often during the past years, but no, there is no bitterness in my thought of him. It was a great leader, which and how is lost." Jinnah was buried on 12 September 1948 amid official mourning in both India and Pakistan. A million people gathered for his funeral led by Shabir Ahmad Usmani. Indian Government General Rajagopal Acharya cancelled an official reception that day in honor of the late leader. Today Jinnah rests in a large marble Mausoleum Mazar-e-Qaid in Karachi.